The USS Laffey is a Tier 8 premium American destroyer and the reward for the ongoing October 2025 campaign. What I've got for you today is an initial sequence from one game and then a full match following this. The purpose of this initial sequence is to demonstrate the power against enemy destroyers. Now, we've got Kunaberti out here, but he's not our primary concern for this sequence. We're going to take him out by doing 62 damage to his last remaining 62 HP, and we're going to dodge his Italian sea mine torpedoes because they're so terribly slow, and USS Laffey also has pretty good maneuverability characteristics. But if you take a look at the state of this particular battle, you'll see that it's a 3v4 in favor of the Reds right now, and our two teammates are battleships on the Charlie flank, both of which are completely out of position to provide any firepower against the ships that we're spotting. One of which is the Minagumo, and we're aware that we're going to need to deal with him in order to have any hope of winning this game. Now, we've got Suzuya and Mines out there. Both of them are almost far enough away that they are not within our firing range. And so if we were to shoot our guns, as long as we sail a little bit further away from Suzuya, then we wouldn't be spotted if the Minagumo is eliminated. That's sort of the plan forming in my mind here. And Georgia looks like he is poised to go around that rock. So we might have the conditions we need to take on the Minagumo 1v1. We're going to deploy one of the USS Laffey's gimmick smoke screens, and we'll talk about the parameters on these things in a little while. And basically the purpose of this is to reverse in closer to the Minagumo. We think he's probably going to outspot us, given he's an IJN destroyer and those love to build for concealment. He's also trying to torpedo our smoke screen, but apparently doesn't know exactly where we are, and so none of the torps are going to hit. And so we were thinking if we push out here right now, hopefully the cruisers are far enough away, one of them goes down to one of our battleship teammates. Hopefully they're far enough away that we can finish off this Minagumo and then deal with the Georgia, who we assume is on the other side of the island, but he's not. There's Minagumo. He's almost on full HP, but it's no problem for USS Laffey. Being an American destroyer, it's got pretty good guns. They hit very hard. Maybe the reload isn't quite as quick as you would expect, but it's certainly a tremendous amount of firepower when it comes to dealing with enemy destroyers in a knife fight. And you'll notice we've got our heal active too. So even though the Minagumo does great damage against us, we're able to restore a good deal of that. However, the Georgia didn't go around the island. He drove straight into the capture circle. And then the Suzuya is also out there in the distance. Both of them can fire at us. Our battleship is too far away to be of much use. And, well, we're going to go down. But our torpedoes are 10 seconds from reloading. Suppose we could be shooting at Georgia this entire time. Maybe it's a mistake that we're not. I don't know, but we're not getting out of this alive. So we're going to put the torpedoes in the water before the Suzuya or the Georgia takes us out. And that's it for this game for us. However, our battleship teammate is still alive. We've taken out the destroyer, the most important thing for us to do if we want to win, considering that guy's on full HP. And then the torpedo salvo against the Georgia, well, it is going to find its mark. And we're going to get not one, not two, not three, but 4 torpedo hits for a devastating strike and our third kill of that match. Also, it's just a flesh wound. So you would think with this Suzuya pushing into the Iowa that he'd be able to sink it, but no. The Suzuya pushed in, reversed himself behind this island, and then by the time that Iowa decided to go forward, well, Suzuya was long gone, so we lost that game. It was a terrible day for me, honestly, yesterday on Update Monday. Some of the worst teams I've ever played. This was actually probably the best team, where we could have actually won, but, you know, Iowa, you're not controlling his ship. You don't control what your teammates do. You only control what you do. We probably should have been a little bit less reckless. Anyway, on to the main match here. I just wanted to show you that opening sequence because that's a good demonstration of how this thing can win knife fights. It's got the main battery firepower to do it, and then it's got 2 charges of what is essentially a super heal. This repair party restores 323 HP per second for a duration of 20 seconds, so it's enough to get back about a bar and a half of HP. Very useful. Anytime a destroyer has a heal, that massively increases its survivability, and it can probably sustain you through gunfights with things that have better DPM than you. I don't know that Minigun does exactly, but there are destroyers out there that do, and probably thanks to this heal, you'd be able to go toe to toe with them and come out on the other side victorious. That's not the only consumable we have, of course. We've also got the smoke generator, and you'll notice that there is no count next to the generator icon on the selection of the consumables down in the left-hand corner of the screen. That is because there is no limit to the charges of this smoke screen generator. It is effectively unlimited, but it is limited by one thing, which is its reload time. Now, the duration or the dispersion time of the smoke screen is 60 seconds. It deploys for 15, so you can make a relatively large cloud, and then it'll hang there for 60 seconds. With some commander skills, you can increase the duration. I've actually got it clocked at 62.4. But then after the smoke screen is done dispersing, it takes 120 seconds to reload. So if you sit inside of the smoke screen for the full 60-second duration, then by the time it dissipates, you only have to wait 60 seconds for the next one to come off cooldown. It's almost like the British destroyer smokes, but not quite as quick reloading. In fact, we could compare it to the smoke screens on HMS Daring. It, of course, has a limited amount of them, 6 of them, and they only stay on the water for 40 seconds, but then they have a 60-second cooldown time. So the cooldown time on Laffey is double the cooldown time for the British smoke, but the amount of time that it lasts for is about 20 seconds longer. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, and honestly, I would almost prefer the British smoke, but maybe a larger number instead of unlimited, maybe like 10 of them or something, I don't know. I don't really think that this smoke screen offers quite as much versatility as the actual British ones, because it just takes at least 2 minutes to cool down. And if you end up using one to, I don't know, disengage, or you burn it for some other reason, well, then 2 minutes is quite a long time to wait for the smoke screen generator to come back up. I mean, if for some reason we were driven out of this smoke screen right here, you see the 2-minute cooldown time. It's fairly lengthy. And I suppose it has to be that way in order to give the thing balance. I don't know, you couldn't really have an unlimited British smokescreen consumable, at least not a true one, maybe. It's fine, though. It certainly allows you to not really think about how you're going to use the smoke too much. Not as much as if you were playing the Sumner, for example, whose smoke screen lasts for a very, very long time. By the way, we're radared by the Constellation, and I think by the time his radar runs out, we're still going to have some more smoke left. We're just using it to farm these battleships right here, of course. Now, we should talk about the stats, or the specs on the ship. Of course, they're going to be influenced by my Halsey build, and I do have Sims as one inspiration. With him, our HP is 21,540, and that actually seems quite low for a destroyer at this tier, especially one like this, which is a gunboat. But of course, that's mitigated by the fact you've got 2 charges of the super heal. So even if the HP is not as much to begin with as some other more healthy destroyers, well, you can get a lot of that HP back. And then the main battery. We've got 6 127mm guns, standard American destroyer caliber guns, and we've got the reload module in the 4th slot, plus the first skill in Halsey's skill tree that decreases the reload time. We have a reload of 3 seconds. Our main batteries traverse in 8.5. And as for the damage characteristics, the HE shells do 1800 max damage. Thanks to Halsey's base trait, which gives a little bit of a buff to AP shell damage, we've got 2189 for the max on that. I think it might be 2100 or 2000 base. And then the fire chance on this thing is a mere 5%, much like the other American destroyers. HE only pens 21 millimeters of armor. And the shell times, or the shell arcs rather, they're very floaty. These things have 792 meters per second muzzle velocity according to the specs page, and that's one of the lower numbers in the game. You'll find low numbers like that all across American ships which do have floaty shell arcs. And as such, we haven't really spec'd into the main battery firing range. It's 11.2 km base, and that's good enough. If you were to try to extend it with any commander skills or modules, I don't think you'd be able to really successfully hit things at long ranges, except for battleships. And once again here, we're going to deploy a smoke screen and begin farming. We don't really have too much assistance on this flank, as you can see. All of our battleships are gathered in a battleship main meeting between the Charlie and the Alpha Caps, and then we're here with two cruisers who we are providing spotting for intermittently, and they are doing a good deal of damage to these targets that we're spotting. Hopefully they'll be able to take out this Pozarski. We should also talk about the torpedoes on the Laffey, though. These torpedoes are worse than the Sumners. This thing is, after all, a Sumner-class ship, just with some differences. Torpedo range is 8 km, which isn't terrible. You can, still fire them from stealth, of course, but you're going to be in the radar range of anything that has radar in order to do it, so there is that. They've got a 66 knot speed, which is fine, but not exactly fast by today's standards, I wouldn't say. The damage is okay at a maximum of 16,799, and being American torpedoes, they are rather stealthy, with a sea detectability range of 1.4 km, a little bit less reaction time for the enemy ships, and so that can make them fairly dangerous if you do hit them, which we have in that first sequence against Georgia, and I've been able to put them to use in other battles as well. As for the AA characteristics, it's got an aggregate rating of 52, and it's got the DFAA consumable. You would think maybe it should be good at shooting down planes, but for once, I actually have had the displeasure of dealing with CVs on the beginning of an update cycle, and so I've seen the AA in action. I will tell you that I'm not impressed. It was not very good at shooting down planes. Some CV flew its plane squadron right directly over me. I used the DFAA. He hovered around in it for a good, 10 seconds or so, and I shot down a total of 1 planes. So I think this thing is perhaps not all that capable of defending itself against planes, but really what is? As for the maneuverability, that's a real highlight of this ship. The American DDs tend to have excellent maneuverability. The only downside here is that we don't have an engine boost to increase our rather pedestrian maximum speed of 36.5 knots. That's certainly not the slowest destroyer speed in the game. I think maybe the Akizuki at Tier 7 has that honor, but it's not especially fast by destroyer standards, and there's really no way to make it faster because no engine boost. However, we do have a 620-meter turning circle and a 4-second rudder shift. Or, correction, actually, a 3.4-second rudder shift, so quite a bit faster than that. And then the concealment with the concealment module and Eric Baez one inspiration is 5.5 kilometers, which is certainly respectable and usable, although there are a lot of destroyers that will outspot you. However, most of the time you have a smoke screen ready to go if things get too hot and heavy and you have to disengage. And if you're in a situation where you're squaring off against a number of enemy battleships and there's nothing else really to shoot at you, well, you can know the battleships will reload their guns approximately every 30 seconds, and your maneuverability is good enough that you can stop and start quite quickly, you can turn easily, and you can dodge battleship salvos or throw them off to some degree. Even if you can't, as I couldn't there against the Massachusetts and the Heisen, well, then you've got this super heal to fall back on, and you can smoke up and farm them as we're doing here. That's basically what we're going to do for the duration of this battle. This update Monday, by the way, has been brutal. I played, I don't even know how many games in the Laffey. I suppose I could check while recording this video for you. Looks like we've got 15 matches in this thing yesterday. We've got a decent 60% win rate in it as well. I've done better in campaign ships on Update Mondays, but I'm telling you, the quality of gameplay this yesterday when I was playing all these 15 games, not good. However, my first impressions of the Laffey are fairly decent. I think the smokescreen gimmick is weird. It's nice to have it in comparison to the conventional American smoke. It allows a lot more versatility, of course, with these sort of British-inspired smoke screens. You can deploy them to disengage or just to farm from, and you're not committed to that position for like 2 minutes or however long the American smokes last. You have a lot more ability to move around the map and deploy them, and the only limit to them is the cooldown time being a flat 2 minutes. That means you could use, I don't know how many of them in one game, maybe about 6 or 7 at the most, sort of like the British smoke. And for that reason, I kind of wish we just had the British smoke on these so we could have a 40-second duration time and a 60-second cooldown instead of 2 minutes to allow for that true versatility that the British smoke provides. These don't quite provide that much, and I'm not that much of a fan of it, to be honest with you. But I like the concept, and I like the ship itself. It's a pretty good destroyer. Very good at winning knife fights and being the sheriff inside of capture circles. Sort of like a USS Kidd in that sense. You could think of it that way because both of those things have a heal, although the Kidd has very different smoke and more limited torpedoes, you could say, than the Laffey, or at least fewer. Both of them have relatively short range on their torpedoes for their tier, though. So in many ways, this is kind of like the Kidd. And as such, I like the Kidd. Classic destroyer, classic sheriff, as T-Bull used to call it, classic gunboat knife fighter. And this thing is really no different. It is a knife fighter. It's something that can farm battleship superstructure for a lot of fires inside of smoke screens as well. And because the Heisen shot, and he has a very long reload, we're able to take that opportunity to almost take him out. Somehow, we're coming back and winning this game, even though the enemy team has gotten 3 out of 4 of the capture circles. They've decided that they're just going to push in far too aggressively to the rest of our team and throw the match, which is good for us, especially since all of our help went over to this side of the flank, and all they left for us was this last cruiser, a Seattle, versus me and the Plymouth. Of course, the Seattle has radar, and the Plymouth has cracked main battery firepower. So the Plymouth doesn't actually need my help against this Seattle. He's making short work of him all on his own, but we're going to chime in with the main battery guns before the battle ends. So, is USS Laffey worth getting as a campaign reward? I'd say yes. It's a pretty good ship. It's fun to play. A little bit of a different flavor than the rest of the Americans. Sort of like an American-British hybrid, you could almost say, just because of the smoke screens. And certainly the smoke screens do offer for interesting gameplay possibilities that are just not possible in any other American DD. So I would recommend buying the Admiralty backing and completing this campaign. You'll probably enjoy the thing. Give this video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.